Hello, class. This is Mrs. Smith, and this is your introductory lecture on Beowulf. I suggest you take some notes as I go through this. I will probably break the lecture into two parts just to make it a little bit easier for you. Remember, after each instruction set, you do have a SWIC to complete, and you may use your notes on those SWICs. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first of all, we have some objectives for the unit I want to go through with you. Remember that SWABAT stands for Student Will Be Able To. Student will be able to read an epic poem and synthesize how past cultures and traditions play a role in storytelling. Student will be able to apply poetic elements to an epic in order to understand how meaning is conveyed. Student will be able to appreciate the cultural value of storytelling in the English language. Student will be able to apply how the origins of storytelling provide a foundation to the stories of today. And student will be able to analyze how poetic language can be used to convey images, imply themes, build suspense, and establish mood. So let's talk about the epic. So I have a quote that I took from an old Prentice Hall literature textbook, and I liked this quote because it really encompasses why epics were so important. From the 5th through the 15th centuries, England was a place of upheaval and uncertainty. Invasions, plagues, and political battles raged, and people looked for reassurance in the form of heroes who embodied strength, honor, and virtue. This need for heroes is met in epic tales such as Beowulf. Now, for this course, we don't necessarily focus on just England. We will do some English works, but we'll, of course, be looking at American works as well. But a lot of American works were encouraged or influenced by what was happening in England or even in Europe prior to the popularity of American text. So what is an epic really? Well, let's go ahead and go through a couple bullet points here. First of all, an epic is a long narrative poem, sometimes developed orally, that celebrates the deeds of a legendary or heroic figure. Epics are among the earliest forms of literature next to lyrical poetry. So when you're thinking about lyrical poetry and you think about how the sounds help the poem stay together, that also helped your storytelling because people could remember the lines better. For example, most of your lyrical poems and your epics were told by a scop, which was an English bard or a minstrel or a poet. And it was a lot easier to remember the lines and keep the story all in order because it was told with a beat and it had rhythm and sometimes not always rhyme. We're going to find that Beowulf does not rhyme, but all of those lyrical elements helped the story come together and be easily memorized. So some of the common features of an epic include heroes battling forces that threaten the order of the world, like good versus evil, which is a pretty traditional trope. And the story typically is told in a serious manner and often in special, elevated language, maybe even a language that is heightened or hyperbolized for storytelling purposes. So the rest of our PowerPoint, we're going to look at 5 things specifically. We're going to talk about the background of Beowulf, the setting of Beowulf, the language, some important motifs, and poetic devices. Let's start with the background information. So it was originally told in Old English language. Beowulf is a representation of a culture that existed in Anglo-Saxon 8th century Britain. The quote-unquote author of this epic is unknown, but there is evidence that many aspects of Beowulf were duplicated from previous Scandinavian and Celtic folk tales. So since nobody knows for sure who told it, there is evidence that there were lyric poems that probably came before the telling of Beowulf, and there were elements in those lyric poems that we find again in Beowulf. So it could be that Beowulf is just a combination of folklore put together into one big storytelling adventure so that it's not in like bits and pieces, but it's kind of adhered all together in one epic. Much like the Odyssey and the Iliad from ancient Greece, Beowulf was told out loud. And it was passed down from generation to generation until being transcribed sometime between the 15th and 16th century, 1600s. So if you can kind of picture this, to educate children, the best way to educate children in a village or in a tribe was to give them stories that had been passed down from previous generations. So that happened with the Iliad and the Odyssey as well. And that way, those young children who were part of this culture were brought up with the traditions of this particular story. And then those traditions were passed down to their own children. So those cultural traditions stayed important in their family, their clan, their tribe, their village. They became kind of like the go-to for what was considered important. Third bullet point, the tradition of storytelling provided lessons for future generations on bravery and loyalty. We often see spite, hatred, greed, etc. were symbolized by monsters and demons. Of course, the goal of these cultures was to conquer all these quote-unquote demons, all these things that were considered to be evil or against what the culture or the tribe recognized as important. And the last bullet point, many of the cultural expectations, traditions, lessons, and themes provide the foundation for the Western world literature we recognize today. So we see a lot of the same tropes from Beowulf in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, in Harry Potter, in even like Game of Thrones. We'll see multiple tropes reemerge in the literature that we think is very valuable by today's standards. Let's go ahead and pause here, and we'll go ahead and go on to your first SWIC.